Call to order the September 23rd meeting of the Cary Town Council. And at this time, I'll recognize Councilmember Urha for our ceremonial opening. Mr. Urha.
Please join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is to adopt the agenda. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
There's
Second.
a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We move to recognitions, reports, and presentations. And I have a proclamation to read in honor of former council member Michael Joyce. For those that don't know, Michael Joyce joined the council in 2003. He was actually an opponent of mine who defeated me in an election. And afterwards, we became buddies. And we had a lot of conversations and about what was going on in the town and what his vision was and what his thoughts were. And I tried to help in some of those visions and thoughts. But he was a very interesting character, but a very nice guy. And I really enjoyed getting to know him, and just to complete the story, he actually supported me in my next election. So yeah, he was against me in one, but supported me in another. But unfortunately, he and his wife passed away due to COVID, days apart, which was really, really sad. But we do want to honor his memory and recognize him this evening. And before I read the proclamation, I'll open it up to anybody who would like to make other comments that knew him. Well, Jack, you knew him, right?
Yeah, he ran against me also.
Oh, he ran, that's right.
Yeah. Mike gets around. Mike got around, so God bless him. I was thinking about it, and I was reflecting back on that campaign, and what I remembered about Michael is just what you were saying. We actually, beforehand at forums and so forth, we started talking to each other afterwards. And what I really admired is we could have just a great conversation, and it never got personal. And it was something, and I'm sure you experienced that, it was just something where he was passionate in what he believed, as I believe I was, but he always kept it on the subject. And he refused to let the partisan rhetoric get in the way. I mean, everybody kind of knew, which way Michael leaned and some of his beliefs, but we never let that get in the way. And I just think that's just the memory that I live with. And also getting to know his wife, Robin. She was a bit of a gym rat, so she was a real health person, and she liked to remind me I wasn't. So, so we had a great time. So they were just two lovely, genuine people, and I hope we all keep them in our prayers, because they're in mine. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Go ahead.
I got to know Michael really well in 2003 when I kind of really first got involved in local government here in the town, and we became friends really quickly. Mike was a really friendly guy, and he was a character, and we didn't always agree on everything. I don't think any of us agreed with Mike on everything, but he was just a great all-around guy, and we got to know each other and become friends. And me and Elise became friends with him and Robin, and always enjoyed our interactions together. And he was a customer of mine, and I was a customer of his, and when he needed his vans worked on, we handled that. And when I needed plumbing fixed, he was there for me. And, and usually after I tried to fix it myself the first go around. And I remember, I was working on our basement bathroom and trying to get this pipe soldered, but gravity was being challenging. And I called Mike and asked him for advice, hey man, I'm all good except for this one thing right here. And he goes, oh, don't worry about it, I'll be right there. And I'm like, no man, I just, give me a few pointers, help me, or well, how would you do? No, but I'll be right there. And before I could tell him no, he'd hung up. And I kid you not, in 15 minutes, he's pulling in the driveway. And so he came in, he looked at it, in typical Mike fashion, he soldered it up in about a minute, and we were done. You know, and we spent the next hour and a half just drinking beer and telling stories and having a good old time. And that was Mike. That's my memories of Mike, was just an incredibly friendly and a helpful guy. And if you needed something from him, he was there for you. He would drop what he was doing and he would come help. And that's what I loved about Mike, and that's what I'm going to miss about Mike. It was incredibly sad what happened to both him and Robin, and for both of them to go within such a short period of time with each other. And probably, I don't know the circumstances, but I don't even know if they could say goodbye to each other. I have no idea. That just, you know, when I heard about that, I just first was shock, and then second was sadness, and just had a good cry. And so I'm going to miss them. I'll be honest, I hadn't seen them in a few years. They'd kind of moved away and moved away again. And so I'm hopeful they're in a better place. I know they are. Pray for their family and their friends. And so, yeah, I miss him.
Thank you for sharing that.
Harold,
Yes.
one thing I would just like to also add about Michael is that he was a huge advocate for children who came from disadvantaged homes. And I don't know if y'all remember this, but he really advocated strongly for the Boys and Girls Club.
Oh, that's
And,
right.
yeah, and
he was
you know,
big in
one thing I really appreciate about him is that he was very out front about trying to encourage people to get involved. And I do think that's something that we in Cary could do better at, is, you know, giving back to the families that don't have as much, to be able to be more philanthropic than we are. And I really admired that aspect of Michael, and the way that he encouraged us to get behind the Boys and Girls Club or whatever other organizations serving the families of Cary and Raleigh.
Very well said. And as has been said before, if you remember someone, they're not gone. It's when you forget someone that they're gone. So remember Mike Joyce and his wife, Robin. All right. Actually, that's the title of this proclamation. Remembering former Cary Town Council member Michael Joyce. Whereas Michael Joyce became a Cary resident in 1993 and joined the council in December of 2003, serving as the at-large member. He resigned from his position in 2006. He was born in Northridge, California, and raised in Nashua, New Hampshire. And whereas Michael was previously involved in Cary's government through his work on the Cary Athletic Advisory Committee, a graduate of Citizens Assisting Police, and former Cary Parks and Recreation basketball coach. Outside of Michael's involvement in Cary, he was a small business owner of Joyce Company Incorporated, and was a consultant and author of several plumbing books and taught plumbing seminars and classes. Whereas Michael was involved in many civic and professional associations, including being one of the founding members of the Western Wake Republican Club, and at-large member of the North Carolina Republican Party Executive Committee, and a member of the Raleigh-Wake County Home Builders Association. Michael will be remembered for being a devoted mentor and coach to youth in sports, inspiring many children. And whereas Michael was married to Robin Joyce, the couple passed away in September 2021 due to COVID-19. They were married for 41 years and lived 33 years of their lives in Cary before moving to Georgia. Now, therefore, I, Harold Weinberg Jr., Mayor of the Town of Cary, North Carolina, on behalf of the entire Cary Town Council, remember Michael Joyce and wish the Joyce family strength and comfort during this difficult time. Proclaim this 23rd day of September, 2021. Rest in peace, Mike and Robin. All right. Michael and Robin were business owners, and I do understand that our next presentation, which is Cary 150 History Moment, has to do with business. Is that correct, Mr. Yura?
It is indeed. It seems
All
very
right.
appropriate.
Thank you.
The topic is Cary means business. And we're going to look at some of Cary's early businesses and a few others along the way. Cary's first businessman was John Bradford. He was a tavern owner with a lot of land and a rather spotty reputation. Bradford became a landowner in Cary as early as 1760, and he opened what was called an ordinary on the location of the current town hall. The ordinary served as a place where travelers and locals could eat, drink, and find shelter. Bradford was very active in public affairs until he disappeared from the public records in 1801 after losing a lawsuit which was brought on by several neighbors over some unpaid debts. Following the Civil War, in an explosion of interest in tobacco in North Carolina, Frank Page, Cary's founder, opened his tobacco factory. It was by far the largest building in town, and it sat where the Fire Administration Building is located today, near the intersection of Cedar and Academy. You can make it out, I hope, on that map. There's no evidence that the building, however, ever saw a single tobacco leaf, because the 1873 Depression hit Cary just as the construction on the building was completed. And the building was sold that same year and later housed a grist mill, a print shop, a post office, and even a church on the third floor. You could say it was Cary's first multi-use development. It later burned in the fire of 1908. After Frank Page left town in the 1880s, the most prominent businessman was Robert J. Harrison, whom Page had mentored. Harrison arrived in Cary and started the North Carolina Plow Company, which was later renamed the Harrison Wagon Company, on the northeast corner of Harrison and Academy. There's an historic marker there today. His business grew to become one of Wake County's largest industries in the 1890s. And after retiring from his manufacturing business, Harrison stayed in Cary and spent his last working days running a cafe on the corner of Academy and Chatham, where Ashworth Drug now stands. His cafe was known as Uncle Bob's Corner, and that's pictured there on the left-hand slide, and became a very popular hangout for students from the original Cary Academy. Frank Page's idea for a hotel may have been shaped by the shanty shelter that he had to build for passengers waiting for trains, as Page was the agent and the biggest supporter of a train stop in Cary. Records show that in 1871, the sidetrack at the stop consisted of a water pump, a tank, and a warehouse, and the warehouse included a passenger waiting room and a ticket room. Announcing the plans for the new hotel, the Raleigh Christian Advocate described it as a most delightful place for summer resort for our eastern friends. And architecturally, it was very elaborate for a whistle-stop town like Cary. When Page left town in the 1880s, he sold his hotel to Jacob Walker for $3,000, along with 3 acres of land. Under Walker's ownership, the hotel became Cary's best-known business at the turn of the century. Mr. and Mrs. Walker were beloved members of the community, and after Mr. Walker's death, Helen Walker turned the hotel into apartments and a rooming house. The building then would change hands several times, and due to the efforts of the Friends of the Page Walker and the town of Cary in the 1980s and 90s, the building was restored to its current condition and is now, of course, the Page Walker Arts and History Center. Interesting to note that for Cary's first 50 years, Cedar Street, which was known then as Railroad Street, was Cary's main business street. But in 1920, the new Western Wake Highway ran down the newly paved Chatham Street, and soon Chatham replaced Cedar as Cary's premier business address. And for much of the first half of the 20th century, a large part of the commercial land in Cary was owned by one family, the Gray family. But after 1945, Cary experienced changes in its central business district that had a tie to a wartime romance. Because due to a social visit to Cary from Raleigh, Sergeant Vroom Roscoe, I love that name, his first name is Vroom. Vroom Roscoe fell in love with the Baptist church pianist Eugenia Gray. The couple got married, they settled in Delaware, and this move prompted the Gray family to auction off all of their downtown property. And after the property sale, Cary Business District flourished. Paul Chandler built Cary's first movie theater on East Chatham. The building was the first new building in downtown Cary in over 15 years. The building then became a clothing store, the Chatham Street Auto Parts, and of course today it's back to a movie theater. Continuing on East Chatham, John Catronis built a structure to house multiple businesses, including his shoe shop, and a washerette, that's another name I like, a washerette, and a drugstore opened by Kenneth Franklin. The drugstore was bought by Wayne Mitchell in 1956 and became Mitchell's Pharmacy, which operated there until 1993. We know it today, of course, as the Pharmacy. Continuing down the street, Henry Adams erected a building in 1952, using half for his appliance store. The other half was leased to the Cary branch of the Bank of Fuquay. The Bank of Fuquay later became Fidelity and eventually bought the entire block. The Bank of Fuquay was the first financial institution in Cary since 1931, when the Bank of Cary folded, and that's a story for another day. The next ribbon cutting in this period was for the first supermarket, a Piggly Wiggly, that opened in 1950. The Piggly Wiggly was housed in the building where La Farm is now located, and the site was also home at one time to Glenn Hobby's television and appliance business. The arrival of the Piggly Wiggly was really a sign of growth, but it wasn't welcomed by all. The Rogers family, who owned the local grocery store, couldn't keep up with the supermarket's low prices. Thus, Lemuel Rogers stopped selling groceries and he went into the hospitality business, becoming the proprietor of Rogers Restaurant and Motel, a staple stop in Cary for tourists and truckers. Another local grocery store that was affected by the arrival of the Piggly Wiggly was the Denning family store. The Dennings started selling groceries on West Chatham in 1941 and then tried their hand at their own supermarket, the Grocery Boys, in 1964. The store was located in 122 West Chatham, which used to house Creative Images, you may remember. The name Grocery Boy carried on as the Dennings opened up a convenience store model in Raleigh called the Grocery Boy Jr. It was one of the first convenience stores in all of Wake County. It grew to a chain of 12 stores and was owned by the Dennings' son. Since we mentioned the Rogers Restaurant and Motel, it seems appropriate to talk about the history of the building. The restaurant was originally opened on East Chatham in the 1950s. In 1961, Lemuel Rogers bought the property at 149 East Chatham and moved the restaurant and motel there, expanding it to 7 rooms and adding an apartment. It was sold to his son and daughter-in-law, Billy and Barbara Rogers, in 1966. Billy and Barbara ran the motel and opened their doors to all. It became a meeting place for Cary town leaders. In fact, it's been said that more town decisions were made there than at town hall. It was demolished earlier this year for the development of Rogers West and East. The new development will pay homage to the well-known name of its past owners. The only building at the intersection of Chatham and Academy that still remains from 1945 is the Masonic Building that houses Ashworth Drugstore. In 1945, the building housed 4 businesses. On the first floor was the Adams Drugstore and Lemuel Rogers Grocery Store. Upstairs was the Lodge Hall itself and Lucille Batts's Beauty Shop. The Ashworths bought the building in 1977 after buying Henry Adams Drugstore in 1957. Ralph and Daphne arrived in Cary from Fuquay Varina looking for one of the town's 2 drugstores that had been advertised for sale. As the story goes, and I'm sure Ralph can give us more details on this one, they walked into Adams Drugstore and asked if it was for sale. Mr. Adams responded, "Nope, but I'll sell it to you." And at that point, a Cary business legend was born. Harry Stevenson was a high school classmate of Ralph and Daphne in Fuquay, and he moved to Cary and noticed that all the oil that heated the homes was delivered from companies in Raleigh. And after talking with potential customers and getting a $1,500 bank loan from Fuquay, Stevenson bought his first oil delivery truck in the fall of 1959. He drove it himself during the day, and he kept his job at night as a radio announcer. The one-man oil delivery service was the beginning of the Cary Oil Company, later to become one of North Carolina's largest petroleum marketers. But self-service gas pumps were really what took Cary Oil to the next level and kept it successful throughout the years. Stevenson's innovation of self-service gas pumps was a direct result of his visit to Carolina Builders in Raleigh, which registered the amount of fuel used by each of their drivers during a fill-up. So with the consent of Joe Denning of Grocery Boys, Stevenson installed these pumps, and that was the first beginning of self-service gas stations in North Carolina. Another business that's been a staple in our community in the construction industry is J.M. Thompson. It's an honor for Cary to celebrate its 150th anniversary along with J.M. Thompson, which is celebrating its 100th anniversary this very year. The company was founded by John Marvin Thompson, who moved from Bahama to Raleigh in 1921. Thompson grew from a small business to one of the region's largest home builders. Between 1945 and 1971, Taylor Biscuit Company was the most significant new industry in Cary. In 1947, it was the town's largest employer. Now known as Austin Quality Foods, it's still one of the largest employers. The company moved from its original building in 1988 to Weston Industrial Park. Then we have Heater Well Company, which started as Heater Drilling Company, which we know was in existence as early as 1921. Russell Heater was also known as Mr. Cary, borrowed some of his father's equipment to start the drilling company. The company did well in the 20s, went bankrupt in 1931 along with a lot of other people, and then reorganized as Heater Well Company. And by 1940, it was the largest well drilling firm in the Carolinas. In 1933, Durham Life Insurance Company bought 138 acres on East Chatham Street through a foreclosure sale. In addition to a building, they erected a 325-foot transmission tower for its radio station, WPTF. Completed in 1934, the tower allowed for a boost in transmission and enabled the transmitter on the Sir Walter Hotel in Raleigh to be closed. The building may be small in size, but actually has underground office space that enabled announcers to broadcast through storms. Although there are no longer shows being broadcast from the building, the towers still function, and the building itself is an historic preservation treasure. Then we had the doctors, Dr. Yarborough and Dr. Hunter. They were the two most prominent doctors in Cary in the 1920s, 1930s, and 1940s. Dr. Yarborough's office, which has separate entrances, and that's the building you see in the lower left, had separate entrances for white and black patients, which was customary in those days. But inside was an integrated waiting room, which was not customary for those days. And it still stands on Academy Street as a private residence. Dr. Hunter's residence, in the upper right-hand corner, is a Cary landmark on 311 South Academy Street. And his office was across the street in a building that later housed the Cary Public Library and now is Serendipity Gourmet Deli. That was Dr. Hunter's office. And by the way, both doctors were mayors of Cary. A major turning point in the city's economic development was the direct result of the Cary economic policy of the Chamber of Commerce in 1989. Once the Chamber erected the town's economic development office, it launched a professional industrial recruitment drive and increased its support of existing Cary businesses. Outgrowing its original building, the Chamber moved to its current location on North Academy in 1993. The Chamber was growing quickly under the leadership of its president, Howard Johnson. And in my opinion, no history of Cary from now on cannot be written without a mention of Howard Johnson, who's retiring this year as Chamber President after 35 years. The first fruit of Cary's industrial recruitments was McGregor Park. The land was assembled by Greg Poole and other investors with a vision to provide a campus-like setting for high-tech industries. After McGregor came Regency Park, which was developed by three Canadians, Ed Woolner and the Solomon Brothers. Regency Park was the city's largest taxpayer at one time. Following behind Regency was Weston, which was a mixture of industrial sites, office parks, and residential areas. And of course, we can't conclude the presentation without mentioning SAS Institute Incorporated, officially chartered on July 1st, 1976, by Dr. Goodnight and John Saul. In 1980, SAS moved from Hillsborough Street to the North Harrison location. Known for its workplace culture, it's often ranked as one of the best companies to work for in the United States. Since 1976, the Cary campus has grown to 300 acres in at least 24 buildings. And there is so much more. There's South Hills Mall, there's Cary Town Center, Crossroads, MetLife, our hospitals, our banks, the Maiden Inn, in Fenton, for example. Not to mention countless smaller businesses like France Automotive, pictured in the center of the second row. Simply, we can't just mention them all, but we are so grateful to all those who invest in our community. a community in a great position to thrive for another 150 years, a community like no other. I'd like to acknowledge Around and About Cary, the book that provides a lot of info for us for these presentations, Matthew Champagne from the Page Walker History Center, and of course, Ginny Johnson. And I ask for you to visit www.cary150.org for more information on Cary's 150th anniversary. That's it for tonight.
That was great, Ed.
Yeah,
Thank you.
excellent.
I really enjoyed that. All right. We're now at item 3 on the agenda, Public Speaks Out. We've included instructions for speaking at this forum online and on the printed agenda. There were 3 opportunities to participate in Public Speaks Out: through written comments, calling in, or attending in person. If you are here in person to speak, I would ask that you take a seat in the rows to my right that are shown as reserved. Please keep in mind that Public Speaks Out speakers have 3 minutes each for their comments, and speakers may speak on any topic as long as it's not a public hearing. And since we have no public hearings tonight, you can talk about anything you'd like to talk about. There is a 3-minute time limit, as I said, and it will be enforced, not to be rude, but to be fair to all Public Speaks Out speakers. There's a timer on the podium. It starts off with a green light. When the light turns to yellow, that means you have 30 seconds remaining. And when the light turns from yellow to a flashing red light, that is the point that I'll interrupt you. I'm not trying to be rude, but trying to be fair to all of our speakers. To help have an efficient Public Speaks Out, the clerk will summarize written comments first. Then we're going to call on the remote speakers, and this will be followed by those who are joining us in person. I thank everyone who attending to respect that this is a business meeting. Please do not applaud, make remarks from your seats, or anything else that may distract from this meeting. So now's the time for Public Speaks Out, and I'll call on our clerk first for any written comments and remote speakers.
So we had one written comment, which is at your seats, from Wilma Slade. She provided examples about stormwater concerns in her neighborhood, and this is related to 21 ROZ Mills Residential. Those stormwater concerns are in the adjacent neighborhood. She wrote in to say that she wanted to make sure the applicants are aware of existing problems so that they ensure the proposed subdivision will maintain the existing drainage patterns and will not divert any additional flow across Mills Road to the Timbermist Forts or the Woodlands subdivision.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Do we have any remote call-in speakers?
No remote call-in speakers. We did have one speaker sign up to speak in person, and the one person that signed up was Amanda Murphy.
Ms. Murphy, would you please come forward now, please?
This one right.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Amanda Murphy, and I live at 3612 Stone Bend Loop in Cary. Thank you to the mayor and council for your time today. I'm here to talk on what has been termed a tsunami of an issue in Wake County, housing affordability. I would like to start with a brief personal story. Back in 2014, I was a newly single mom with 2 young daughters and had been out of the workforce for more than 5 years as a stay-at-home mom. I went back into a marketing role at an engineering firm and had a decent salary with benefits. I rented a 2-bedroom apartment in Cary so that the girls had a bedroom of their own and I could barely make ends meet. Each paycheck just covered rent, utilities, food, gas, phone, and all the other necessities that pop up. Childcare became insurmountable, or if something broke on the car, we were in trouble. I was extremely fortunate and I'm grateful in that my parents were able to move to Cary from eastern North Carolina to be near us and to help with childcare. I hate to ask what if, like so many others in our community, I did not have that support. My rent was $900 when I moved into that small 2-bedroom apartment, a Phoenix community. It went up to $1,100 a month by the time I purchased my first home in Cary. Fast forward to today, you'd be lucky to get a 2-bedroom in Cary for those prices. Those struggling with housing affordability in our community include Town of Cary staff, firefighters, nurses, waiters, waitresses at your favorite sushi joint, our police, and single moms and dads. I understand this issue is challenging for municipalities because the North Carolina General Assembly does not give local government that many rights. Local municipalities surrounding Cary have been making efforts towards a solution, including a penny tax in Apex that is a dedicated fund for affordable housing in their community. As a tax-paying citizen of this great town, I want Cary to be pushing on this issue and work to find the right mix of solutions for this lack of housing, affordable housing. Diversity creates stronger communities. We have got to see that it is our responsibility as a community to take care of those who serve our community. Thank you for your time, and I ask that council and staff continues to seek public input into housing affordability efforts going forward and consider setting tangible, measurable milestones so that the town is working towards a concrete goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Is there anyone else here to speak at Public Speaks Out? Seeing no one, we'll close Public Speaks Out, and we'll move to our next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. For the benefit of people watching our meeting on TV, I'll take a moment to review the consent agenda items. Please keep in mind that one vote approves all of these items. On the consent agenda, we have Town Council recommended advisory volunteer appointments, 21A13 Dold annexation, 21REZ05 Echo Park car dealership rezoning, 21A01 Apollo USA LLC annexation, amendments to traffic schedule B, prohibited parking, all times, village at Evans Farm, and Gateway Center Boulevard. Would council members like any of these items pulled for discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
There's a motion
Second?
and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have no public hearings. We have no discussion items. So now the council will move into closed session, and I'll recognize Councilmember Bush for a motion.
Pursuant to GS 143-318, 11A 1, 3, and 6, I move that we have a closed session to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, and conditions of appointment or conditions of initial employment of one or more individuals, public officers, or employees, to consult with attorneys by the town, employed by the town, or retained by the town in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between attorneys and the town, and to prevent the disclosure of information that is made privileged or confidential pursuant to the laws of the state and not considered public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the general statutes.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and the council will now move into closed session. We'll now reconvene our meeting.
It's on your sheet. Yeah.
Reconvene our meeting, and we have a motion that I would entertain from a council member.
Do you want to move that we return to open session? I move that we return to open session.
I second.
Okay, motion is second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And now move to adopt the resolution.
Yes, I'll move to adopt the resolution approving the memorandum of agreement between the state of North Carolina and the local government on proceeds related to the settlement of the opioid litigation, which staff has provided to us tonight.
There's a motion.
Second.
And the second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And that concludes our business for this evening. I declare this meeting adjourned.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.